Interesting. So
Good. This is what we want. Let's mention. Oh yeah, the
so basically, you can see the like the rightmost column is the current run, um, and the leftmost column is like the performance of master before I made any changes. Well, before I made the changes I made over the past few days. Um, and you can kind of see, more green boxes appearing over time.
Oh,
with that
green,
echo quite funny.
yeah. Red, no. Green, yeah.
Although, I mean, as you can see, like GPT 3.5 Turbo still has its limitations because here it's trying to access a placeholder folder.
It's okay. I see more green, so it's good. It must be good.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, like some of these are a bit flaky, or well, basically, all of the slightly more complicated challenges are a bit flaky because it sometimes just goes off course and does all kind of stupid stuff. Um,
But how did you get
but
this table?
what?
How did you get this table?
Um, well, I I basically developed a little shell script to take all the content of these report files and print them in a more like in a comparative manner. And then I was like, wait, this would be way more efficient as a Python script. So I threw it in ChatGPT and converted it to a Python script, made some more changes, and I'm running this inside a like a shell watch command. So it's updating every 2 seconds, so you can see the progress over time.
Nice.
I'm still finding GPT-4 is better for like what I'm using it for.
I
But
mean,
you're
yeah,
saying
GPT-4 is in many cases will perform better because it's well, it's more able to understand the whole of the prompt instead of most of it. Um, However, GPT-4 is a lot more expensive and it's a lot slower. So GPT 3.5 can be a nice part of the mix because it's just it can execute tasks faster, and if you can then find different ways to have it accommodate for well difficulties on the underway. For example, I'm looking at well, I'm kind of working on an idea to have it switch dynamically between 3.5 and GPT-4 to see if that can kind of help it navigate like complicated well tasks. But the fact is, at the moment, there's a time limit on all of these challenges, and GPT 3.5 will beat GPT 4 because it's faster and it doesn't run into the time limit as often as GPT 4 does.
gotcha.
Should we
Is oh
so sorry to interrupt. Should we kick off the meeting? We have a decent audience here. Bentley put together an agenda. For people who don't have context, this is a weekly maintainer meeting where we just talk about developments surrounding AutoGPT and the ecosystem. Puts here is the main contributor in AutoGPT right now, making a lot of the wonderful changes. Scott is doing some great community management and testing, and honestly, a glue that's holding a lot of stuff together. Bentley is doing a lot of Discord stuff and also community managing and building Discord plugins. And then Wayne is with me on the benchmarks and working on the agent protocol and kind of the more ecosystem based stuff. So I guess this is who we have for the call today. It's now 6 minutes after. So we usually start off with any pressing announcements. No announcements. I assume this call is going to go quite quick compared to other calls, given that we don't have everyone.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I just want to say Bentley, thanks a lot for setting up those meeting reminders because they save me every time.
We got Craig. Hey, Craig. All right. First item on the agenda is ops operations. If there's nothing, I guess puts, you'd be the main person to ask here.
Um, no significant changes that I know of. Well, I posted a recommendation in the I think the general channel because some people were asking how they can contribute right now. And long story short, I said, well, we're still working some stuff out before allowing the mass pull requests back in because that just wouldn't be very practical right now. But anyone who wants to contribute right now uh, can upvote or downvote issues and pull requests if they think they're either important, very good, or very bad and crappy. Um, because that can really help us, sift through the mass that's there. Because I have very limited time for that, and there's not that many other people doing that right now. And some people picked up on that, so that's great.
Yes, wonderful. Is there any way we could put that in the dev forum so it's like always front and center when you like pin it in the dev forum? And if anyone's like
Um,
interested in contributing, just link them to it.
yeah, I even think we can pin issues on GitHub, so that's going to be an action point for after the meeting.
Okay. Uh, Okay. Research. On the research side, things are getting tight but going well. We have a much clearer idea of what we're doing. Just for context, we're writing a paper with David at Mint Northeastern and Adam at Microsoft Research about benchmarking and safety. And so we're kind of figuring out we're figuring out some of the benchmarking categories and how safety falls into that, and better defining what malicious means. Um, and basically, we're trying to create a function. First of all, one of our contributions is the data set, which Craig is working on, and Wayne had put some work into in the past. Um, and that's going to be one contribution. Another contribution is going to be a function that defines what an unreversible task is, and then figures out if it's unreversible and malicious. And so we have pretty much 3 weeks to get this done and submit to ICLR. But it's possible. We had Mark, another person from the community, join to help out. So things are going well on the research front. Anyone else have anything to mention here? Probably not. Development. Yeah, you were showing our star updates puts. AutoGPT updates. Beautiful stuff.
Yes. I think, a couple of the biggest improvements are I have replaced the message history that we were using by an action history. And basically means that we're not taking the message that the agent is, or that the LM is returning, and adding that to the next prompt anymore. Instead, we just extract the information that's needed and format it in a useful way, and put it back in the prompt in a list format. Because this, well, first of all, this hugely reduces looping with GPT 3.5, because, well, one segment of the prompt will not look as much as like the next segment, and if it does, it will just try to reproduce the pattern it's seeing, which would be the exact same thing, which introduces a loop. So switching that over did improve performance a lot, which, well, I just showed. Like, the more green boxes means it's it's breaking less. Also, file context is in now, as in the agent can open files, and it will be like a dynamic part of the prompt where it's constantly updated with every prompt. So it can always see the content of a file or a folder instead of having to read a file over and over again. and that's well, I've seen it being used a couple times where it really made the whole operation a lot more efficient. So that's nice. And then well, also just a bunch of general prompting improvements, like the execute Python code command. It would kind of try, the LM would try to use execute Python file and execute Python code together. Writing one file and then running code, importing stuff from that file. The thing is, execute Python code would create a file in a different location, but that's not specified anywhere in the prompt. So uh, it will try to import and fail, and that's will cost you a lot of tokens, a lot of time. So I have stripped the argument that lets you specify the name of the file, and it's now just creating a temporary file, running it, and then deleting it immediately after in the same in the in the workspace that everything else is in. And that does resolve the issue of, well, not being able to import stuff from existing files with the execute Python code command. And then also, because we run it in a Docker container, the path in the Docker container is different than the path in the normal workspace. That would also cause confusion, where it would infer the path from an error output and then try to use that in next command, which returns an error because it's not the right path in the overall workspace. So I put a bit of magic in there to translate it to the path it should be in the user space. Um, I'm also I'm not sure if I'm gonna have time for this, but I would like to try to like integrate persistence for the Docker container into the agent, where it can just execute shell commands and Python code in a container that persists instead of being thrown away after every execution, because that just unleashes a lot of capabilities with regards to um, iteratively building an execution environment for like installing packages, for example, which isn't really possible now because the container disappears after every command. Um, and then the concept of like persistent resources would be applicable to other things as well, like a browser window. We can read a web page, but not do anything else with it. But if you take the same concept and um, say, okay, this browser window is now a persistent resource connected to this agent instance, and I've already integrated the possibility to enable and disable commands based on the agent state. So once a browser window is open, you get a new set of commands that let you interact with the browser window. This is just an idea. I haven't drafted any like very clear plans on this yet, but this is kind of the direction I'm looking into right now. Um, because, well, managing state and making tools accessible is a very big part of improving performance, as well as making the prompt more understandable, which is also something that still needs work to stop it from looping and stuff like that.
Cool, amazing. I guess a question that I infer from the chat is why is it currently being a Docker container that's being removed every time? Was that the easiest way to implement it to start?
Basically, it's to protect the user environment because, uh, if you're letting an AI bot run code in your system, then it can very easily generate some side effects that you wouldn't really like to have, like manipulating files in your own documents folder or something. You don't want that. So we have a couple of sandboxing mechanisms, such as filtering out, um, like limiting access to files within the workspace of the program itself. But if you're going to let it generate code and execute that, then you can't really do that. Like it's pretty much impossible to make a watertight mechanism to filter out paths, or to disallow access to paths when you're letting a system execute random code. So the decision was to say, okay, we're going to let it execute this code, but in a Docker container, and the Docker container has a volume mount to the workspace, and that's it. So it can only access the files in the workspace that it's supposed to have access to, and everything outside of that, it just can't access because it's in a virtualized environment. So it's basically intended as a sandboxing layer. But of course, that does place limits on the versatility of your, of the effective actions you take because it doesn't persist.
Gotcha. And then could you post a screenshot of how the results are doing for AutoGPT on the benchmark? And is that on a branch of the benchmarks, or is that integrated into AutoGPT? Because it looks nice, man. If we can have that on the benchmarks, that would be nice.
You mean this?
Yes.
Well, this script, it's called analyze report. I actually pushed it to the repository, I think yesterday. So
Okay.
anyone can use
It's
this.
on a PR.
No, it's in master.
Oh, okay. I'll take a look. Thank you.
Yeah, basically, I have stopped submitting pull requests because, well, it's just a lot quicker for me to just write some code, test it, and then push it. Especially since there's not that many people available to review, to quickly review nowadays. I'm just trying to get
No,
this.
for the benchmark, it's fine. As long as you communicate whatever you pushed.
Oh well, I haven't pushed to the benchmark repository. This is just in the AutoGPT repository.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Okay, so do you see this last run, by the way?
Wow.
This is 13 past challenges, and well, this retrieval 2.0, it's a bit flaky. Like sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't work. I personally blame that on the instructions, but that aside, it would not pass this before either, and then sometimes it did. But the others, that's a pretty big improvement. From these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8, 6 past challenges to 13 over here.
So in terms of the challenges as well, we're working on, or I guess I'm working on trying to make some of them make more sense. So you're right, like some of them aren't necessarily measuring exactly what they want to be measuring. And so we're trying to, especially for the paper as well, like hone in on what makes sense and making it so that you can run 10 challenges but get the benefit of running 30. So this has been kind of what I've been working on regarding the benchmark. Trying to figure out how are we structuring the files, what kind of categories are we going to have, what do we care about incentivizing, because ultimately the benchmark incentivizes certain things. And right now the benchmark's a little bit too abstract. It's a lot of proxy tests, which is good, but it's hard to measure a real life use case just with proxy tests. So that's kind of on the benchmark backend side. We're also trying to integrate better with the agent protocol. And Wayne can talk a little bit more about the agent protocol. Yeah, and then the backend for the benchmark is up and running. I mean, there's a few basic routes and some code had to be changed, but it's running, and you can now run any command from the skill tree or any node from the skill tree or a full benchmark run right from the UI. So that's about it for benchmarks.
Very
I guess
nice.
yeah, I guess if Wayne, you have anything else to say or about the agent protocol?
Yeah, let's go. Oh, I can't share my screen. Make me share, Bentley. Is there anyone, Bentley, you can help me with that?
I think Puts has to stop sharing potentially.
Oh, yeah. So,
Whoops, sorry.
question for everyone. Do you work on an agent? If you do, drop it on the chat. Tell us about it, what you're doing, okay? GitHub link, whatever, share what you're building to help people do things. because I'm going to talk about the agent protocol. So it's a very boring name for a very important use case. You're here, okay. Hey, I'm an agent. Who wants to use me? Because I'm great. But you have a user here. I'm trying to use you, but I don't know how to speak to you. I have to install you. I have to do this and that, and it's hard. And we have a benchmark, and we're trying to benchmark you, but we can't because you don't speak our language. And there are other agents that are trying to use you, but they can't because you speak a different language. So what we can do is if you have a very dedicated language, but you're very good, we're going to make the effort to actually learn your language and use you. But sometimes we don't have the time. So it's better if we have a standardized way of communicating with agents, right? And so the agent protocol 0.4 is ready, released. And what this is, it's a way to talk with a web server. I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's very simple. This is the Forge. The Forge is a boilerplate we are preparing for you that you'll be able to, and Craig is working on it, he can talk more about it. It will allow you to start working on an agent. It will be ready to go with basic code, not the code of AutoGPT, which is pretty hard to understand, right? Put can actually tell. But basic stuff that you can start with. Let's start a web server. Oh, okay. Now I have my agent running at this port. But is it an agent? Does it follow the agent protocol? Well, I know how to have my answer. I'm going to use this command, which I'm going to share with you. It's a command you can use anywhere. You just click a button, you click enter, and you see this? It's going to
Wayne,
run the
I
test.
I think it might be good to just talk about it at a high level because I think people can't see the stream. I can't see the stream, and I think a few others can't see the stream.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
So now you see this test here. Why can't we share? It's such a pain. Now I can see the test, and I can see whether I'm complying with the protocol. So I'm going to give you the command. Oh yeah, Scott can see. Yeah, that's weird. I'm going to give you the command to run it. And once you pass the protocol, let us know so that we can integrate you with the benchmark. Okay? That's it on my end.
The agent protocol is a just at a high level, a step towards standardization. Just to sum up what Marwan was saying. The goal here is if every agent implements the agent protocol, then every agent can call every other agent, and tools can implement the agent protocol. And if you have a run method, something that runs, you can implement the agent protocol basically. So that's kind of the initiative there, and it's not an AutoGPT initiative. It's like a combined effort from a few different organizations to make open source standardization in the field. I guess the natural segue would be to talk about the Forge, which Marwan mentioned. Craig?
Hi, yes. So the Forge, which as Moran mentioned, is this like agent stem cells template for people to start building agents. Where we're up to with it is we've been doing a lot of work the last week on the agent protocol, making sure it conforms and making sure the agent protocol has everything we need to actually build an agent. Which means that the state the Forge is in at the moment is not quite ready yet, but it's very close. In the next few days, we're going to have essentially the template completed. And then I might build out a little bit more functionality to give you an idea of how to add memory to the system or how to add abilities. But that'll probably be in another branch. I want the main branch to be the most basic stem cell of an agent with all the functionality you're going to need, like all the tools, best practices there ready for you. Other than that, I don't really have much more of an update on the Forge.
Cool. We should throw some links in the chat. If anyone has the capability to search up, throw the benchmark in there. I can do it after as well. The benchmark, the forge, yeah. The next item, Scott, you want to talk about AutoGPT Reddit? I know there's some exciting stuff there.
Yeah, I have developed a plugin that works with AutoGPT quite well. Right now, it's undergoing another rearch. We've decided on a few changes, but early demos are looking good, and I should have a demonstration soon. Um, it's almost as if the LLM was like trained on Reddit or something. It's pretty good at it.
Good to hear. All right. Does anyone have any other development updates? Yep. Collaboration. I guess documentation. I don't know if anyone's gonna have anything to say about documentation. If not, let's move on to collaboration. If anyone has anything.
Well,
Yeah.
wait. So regarding documentation, I think the developer documentation still needs updating. That was my action point. So, with the action point that I just got of making it more clear on how to contribute and where we're at, I'll just include the previous item regarding that and update the developer docs tomorrow because I'm not gonna have time for that today.
Cool. Thanks for the
So,
update.
so that includes the wiki, the pull request template, and a pinned issue with either links or some explanation.
Cool. Okay, another question in the chat. Yeah, we'll get to all the questions after the agenda. We're almost done. The next thing on the agenda is visibility. You are going to be the first group to know. We haven't announced this publicly yet, that there's going to be a hackathon from September 22nd to October 12th with LabLab. So this is going to be really exciting. And if you want to build an agent or anything related to agents, this is where you got to be. Like, there will be big prizes along with a big announcement that I can't talk about right now. But there will be a big announcement that I think all of you guys will be excited about, and maybe a new direction for AutoGPT. Who knows? So stay tuned. It's called AutoGPT Arena Hacks. It's obviously going to be centered around building agents, and I hope to see you all there. That's all I'm going to say for now regarding the hackathon. Are there any other visibility updates? Right. The other thing I'll say about the hackathon is we're hoping to have like a global audience, speakers from, Torin's going to talk, Itamar from Codium, Anton GPT engineer, Flo from Lindy, the Meta GPT guys if you're speaking Chinese. So there will be a good assortment of people and a lot of support. Next item, facilities. I guess we have some facilities now that me and Marwan are in person. We're working from Cello, a co-working space here in SF. So if you guys are in San Francisco, if you're either in the audience or any of the maintainers, if you guys come through, DM us or message us, and we're happy to host you. Any discussions? We can move on to audience questions. Wait, let me pause and see if there's anything else someone wants to bring up directly relating to what we need to talk about.
Well, I see the release review on the agenda. Basically, I talked to Luke, and we said, okay, these releases, the content of the releases has been kind of declining, because we're because of everything that was going on, we just had fewer actual significant changes per release, and we decided to suspend the weekly release schedule until there's more cooler stuff to share, basically. And I think we're getting close to that. So the release that would have came out, I think, a couple days ago, is not going to happen at this time, but should be soon enough considering the progress we're making right now.
Nice. Good to hear. Okay, the first question that was unplanned. Is it possible to make the installation process? Is Metric here, by the way? Doesn't look like he is. Okay, we could skip that unless someone wants to hear that. Jason's here though. Is vector memory coming back? I think that was his question. Is vector memory coming back? And did it work better when it was implemented? I am new and have yet to get the current stable version to produce a usable output. It either hangs or crashes. No idea if this is a memory thing or a prop thing. I also noticed, I think Put's probably the best person to comment on this.
Yeah. So vector memory, basically, vector memory as like a primary objective was suspended until we had planning under control. Because it's very hard to do retrieval augmentation for an iterative agent without knowing what exactly is going to happen in the next step, because you want to augment the prompt with stuff that's relevant for this next step. But how are you going to do that if you don't know what the next step is? So the idea was, okay, we're going to integrate some kind of medium level planning, not super high level, so that you can kind of see what's going to happen, but also not super low level, because the exact actions that are going to happen will depend on the state, the context, and what's in memory. And you cannot make a low level planning and then try to augment that with memory. That doesn't make sense, because if the planning is already there, the memory is not going to make a difference. So medium level planning, and then use the steps defined in the plan to do vector memory retrieval. In the meantime, I think the changes that were made over the past few weeks have had more positive impact than what the vector memory added when it was still in the application. So, in that sense, we're doing pretty well. Vector memory, it's relevant for long-term runs, as in like runs that are longer than, I don't know, like 50 cycles, because it allows you to build a bigger data set, a bigger memory, and then pull information from that efficiently based on the exact needs at the moment. And well, right now we're just not really benchmarking that, so it's also not really showing up in the benchmarks that we're missing vector memory. But at the same time, the use case for vector memory, in what we've seen so far, is it's not really happening. So it's a secondary priority, and there's other stuff that also helps performance already happening. Vector memory will come eventually, but we want to do it right, not fast. And that's why it takes some time.
Right, perfect. Hopefully that answered your question, Jason. If it didn't, feel free to follow up in the chat below. Someone asked about a flowchart. I made one 2 months ago. The June 9th was when I did that. The architecture of AutoGPT is probably a little bit outdated since, but if you're trying to understand at a high level what's going on, that's probably a decent starting point. Maybe if Puts, do you have any further input on this agent workflow or
Sorry, what?
flowchart? Is there any updated flowchart past June 9th?
You mean regarding the honestly, I don't think so. But
Okay.
I mean, like the exact workflow hasn't changed that much, honestly. The planning agent is not in a working state yet, and I've just been improving the agent that we already have, like the dynamic planning agent, with better tools and better prompting, but the same workflow.
Yeah. In the FigJam, by the way, you start with the run loop one, and then it kind of shows you where it goes from there. But yeah. Do we have any other questions? We have a contributor in the chat as well, Void and Null. If there's anything you want to plug or talk about.
I actually had a question for Puts. Are the new OpenAI functions are they usable with the new master?
What do you mean, the new OpenAI functions? Like, is there
Well, I
version
mean
2?
no, the ones that they came out with, I guess they're not new anymore.
Okay, yeah. Yes, but I'm personally not using it in iterating because, well, basically, what OpenAI does is they inject your function definitions in a certain format, like, well, very much like TypeScript, um, and then they compel the LLM to generate a function call in a certain format and parse that and send it back. But it's not doing that much special stuff, really. So considering the infrastructure that we have ourselves for processing the output of an LLM and generating a prompt specifying a response format, it doesn't really add that much value, especially since the output using the functions API isn't 100% reliable. Like uh, OpenAI says this in their documentation, it's not guaranteed that it will generate a valid function call based on the function definitions that were given. It will hallucinate from time to time, and we already have that issue sometimes, but not that often. And then also using their functions API, well, it kind of uh, you could say limits your flexibility. I mean, it just uses up a chunk of your prompt. It uses tokens like everything else, except it's harder to measure. So I'd rather just keep that logic in AutoGPT at the moment, because it allows us to experiment with things that work better, things that don't work as well, maybe reducing the token usage of those function definitions. And if you switch AutoGPT to using using the function API right now, you won't really get a performance benefit.
Okay. All right. And follow up, what does chat messages do in the ENV? In the code, it almost looks like it just allows you to respond with, instead of just Y, you can say like, okay, yes, sure, all right, things like that.
That is, let's see. I think that's a flag to enable or disable chat plugins. As in, for example, I think the Telegram plugin is an example of that.
Okay.
All right. Great. When Null has headed out, I think one question I guess that may be valuable for everyone is what's the best way to contribute? I know you briefly covered this at the start Puts, but if you're trying to get into the project now, what can you do?
As a user or as a contributor?
Contributor.
Well, basically, uh, I mean, I think I hope it goes without saying, but I don't really have time to conduct job interviews. However, I've seen some people, bring up promising pull requests, upvoting, downvoting, reviewing pull requests or issues without asking. Um, that's something that we can see, and that's really useful actually, because if someone upvotes a pull request or an issue, then we can see that more people have seen this and agree with this or think it's important. And in the overview on GitHub, you can actually sort by number of thumbs up or rocket emojis or stuff like that on the original post. So people who are doing that are kind of in my spot, not my spotlight. I can see that this is happening, and that's really valuable because it kind of takes the load of filtering or searching through this pile off of us. And if people do a nice job reviewing and finding useful pull requests and issues, then I don't really see a problem promoting them to a position with a bit more access, so they can contribute more efficiently and sort through this pile of issues and pull requests that we have. So um, basically, if you want to contribute, just let us know. If it fits within what you want to do in the project, try going through the open pull requests and issues, review them, post thumbs up, thumbs down, and I will see your contributions, pass my screen. Um, there will be more opportunity to contribute content soon, but that's a bit tricky right now because, well, I cannot promise anyone that I'm not going to be moving or deleting or restructuring any part of the code base, which makes it really hard to say, okay, you go work on that, and then the next week it's disappeared or changed shape, and it's very hard to integrate someone's changes. And I don't want to do that to anyone. So yeah, it's I hate to do this, but I'm asking anyone who wants to contribute to hold off on making big pull requests, or at least talk to us before doing so, to prevent any conflicts or integration issues.
Right.
And then
So
I
the
will promise
easiest, the
you that
easiest.
I'll create more opportunities for that in the future.
Wonderful. So the easiest thing to do is upvote and add comments on issues. If you want to get more involved, you talk to Puts, and he'll have a pretty good understanding of what we need help with. Um, do we have any more questions? We can end
Can I add?
early. Yep.
Also, we have lots of first-party plugins that haven't been updated in a while, and a lot of our users actually want to use these plugins. So if you want to contribute the first-party plugins, a lot of them could really use some love and use some updating and even some more features. So um, that's a good place to get started.
Would you be the point of contact for that? Would you have a good overview of the plugins and what would be valuable?
I've used a lot of them. Yeah, I can look into them more, and if anybody has any questions, yeah, they can ask me.
I'm gonna pause for like 10 seconds, see if anyone else has anything to say or any questions in the chat. And if not, I'll adjourn.
Yep. And also, if anyone, we have a dev channel, dev-AutoGPT, and also a dev forum. Now, I haven't really used the dev forum yet. I guess that's still something that I kind of got to get into. But if you post in this dev channel, dev-AutoGPT, that's the place where I post what I'm doing. That's the place where other people post their ideas, considerations. So if you want to contribute, that's the place to be.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll be here next week, same time, and have a good day.